There are many things special about a Peking duck, but I think most people will agree what really sets it apart is the crispy skin. How is the crispy skin achieved? Well, I'm sure every person in Beijing has their own secret recipe, but the principles come down to this. First, the skin is separated from the flesh, creating a channel for moisture to escape and fat to render. Second, the duck is then blanched in a flavorsome liquid to tighten the skin to prevent wrinkles and certain spots that would trap in moisture, creating unnecessary bubbles. Third, the duck is then hung, sometimes even at room temperature, but nowadays mostly in air-conditioned environment, to air dry with a very strong fan. This removes up to 10% of the overall moisture of the duck, but mostly almost eliminates surface moisture, which is the biggest enemy to crispy skin and good browning. Then the duck is roasted in a very hot Chinese charcoal oven vertically, once again allowing the fat to render and the moisture to escape. And that's how we get crispy skin. Would that work for chicken? To some extent, because we have a few factors to consider. Given chicken is prone to higher risk of pathogens, for anyone to handle a chicken, you should always avoid the so-called danger zone, which is between 4 to 60 degrees Celsius, making the blanching and hanging very difficult. But today we try to solve that differently. So the pursuit of crispy skin, whole roasted chicken continues with Peking chicken attempt. Now, what we've done here, I've salted the bird at 0.6% salt and left it in the fridge uncovered for 3 days. This has dried out the surface as much as possible. We will now separate the skin from the flesh, blanch, glaze, and cook vertically immediately at very high heat. So let's do it. As usual, if you've been following since part 1, you can skip this step. Considering this time we actually don't have to undress the whole bird, this episode almost feels like a vacation. Just like Peking duck, we remove the wings and we carefully separate the skin from the flesh. Unfortunately, my butcher didn't do the best job, so we have certain torn bits, but aesthetic is not what we're solving for here, I hope. If this method works, we have a lifetime ahead to roast this for Instagram. Now, once you're in, we enlist the back of a chopstick or a spoon. And because we're roasting vertically, the back skin suddenly is as important as the breast. And for this recipe, it's very important to use a corn-fed chicken because you want a decent amount of fat content under the skin. It will never be as fat as a duck, of course, but it's good to try. Now, for the sake of the bird holding its shape, we're not going to go all the way to the leg side because we know which way we're going to hang the bird. We want everything to come out from the neck side. Perfect. And we're deliberately not removing the wishbone, which I'll explain shortly. Now, we boil some water. Traditionally, this is blanched in a very flavorsome liquid with some spices. That's because given the thickness of the duck skin, you could blanch it for up to 5 minutes without affecting the flesh. Even a fatty French bird like this will not have that much fat. So we have minimal contact period. It's not worth the effort to season the water. While the water is boiling, right here, we have our secret weapon, a vertical chicken roaster, which is simply incredible. It comes in all sizes and prices. As long as it stands the chicken straight, it's worth the investment. Now, once the water is boiling, we blanch the skin, and the skin only. And immediately you can see how it tightens. Now, the bird goes straight onto the vertical roaster, but neck side down. And that's why we didn't remove the wishbone, so that the chicken remains sturdy during the cooking process. Now, next up, and probably the most important for the chicken variation, the glaze, which, regardless of what recipe, always consists of 3 elements: the soy sauce, some form of syrup, and some form of vinegar. Today, light soy sauce, honey, and white rice vinegar. And you simply mix the 3 into a bowl. The soy sauce and the honey would act as the Maillard reaction enhancer, improving the browning. The vinegar would change the pH level of the skin, once again enhancing browning. And very cheekily, borrowing from one of our early recipes, we're going to add a bit of potato starch to give a thin layer on the skin to help it remain crispy during resting and eliminate all the moisture we just introduced. Now, to properly mix this, we ask the help from the wok using the residual heat. It's shocking the honey takes longer than the potato starch. Perfect. We have a somewhat homogeneous texture. Now, knowing how sticky and prone to burning they are, we're going to line this with some tin foil. And now we brush a thin layer on our bird. So the reason why we're roasting neck side down is because for most conventional oven, the heat comes from the top. And what we want to achieve is to bring the legs closer to 74 degrees Celsius before the breasts get significantly above 61, thus yielding perfectly cooked breast meat while giving time for the tough connective tissues and collagen in the thigh meat to break down and turn into incredibly juicy gelatine. And precisely because the heat comes from the top, these knuckles will be prone to burning. So we're going to slightly truss the bird just to bring them closer to the body. There are enough trussing videos on this channel, so we'll just do this one here quickly. This is like the most awkward angle to truss the bird, but we did it anyway. Now, once the glaze is no longer dripping, we remove the tin foil and we give the bottom a really good wipe. Now, just like the Peking duck, we first blast it with high heat, then lower the heat to finish cooking. Once the breast meat hits 60, it has to come out. All right, after about 45 minutes, the chicken comes out. And it's a beautiful chicken. Look at that. Oh, it's a bit unfortunate that we have this pocket that the moisture has been escaping to, preventing it from browning properly. But the rest of the bird just looks incredible. And for once, the back skin is as crispy, if not crispier, than the breast skin. And we have probably, oh, look at the texture, the most beautiful chicken legs we've seen on this channel. We let it rest for 10 minutes and we carve. All right, after 10 minutes, we're ready to carve. But just look at this beauty. How beautiful is that? Let's do it. Well, this one you can carve anywhere, really. But just for comparison with previous episodes, we'll still go for the breast. Oh, look at the juices flowing out. And this one, because we have the wishbone on, we need to carve it. Can you hear that? Wow. Beautiful. Oh, yes. Wow. Shall we? Ooh. Beautifully moist. I'd say taste-wise, brilliant because of the brining and the liquid we used. In terms of crispy skin, I would say this is the crispiest we've had besides the 2 times we inserted something in between, the puff pastry and the phyllo pastry. So I suppose the conclusion is, even with channel for liquid to escape, it's very hard for the chicken skin not just to get crispy, but more importantly, to stay crispy because of the perpetual steam that would come out from the chicken until you've achieved chicken jerky. So the reason why it works for the duck, of course, is because of the huge layer of fat between the skin and the flesh that protects the skin from the flesh. And I suppose that's the reason why picking chicken really isn't the thing. The only way I could think of to improve on this method is to use a lot more cornstarch. That way, we build a crispy layer outside of the skin, but then we're bending the rules a bit too much. So, wonderful method, vertical roaster, definitely worth getting. Separating the skin from the flesh, always work. The glaze, incredible. Is this anywhere near close to what you would expect from Peking duck? No. So, the search for crispy skin, whole roasted chicken will always continue. I really hope you enjoyed.